So the occasion is housewarming. When you walked in, you probably smelled paint, right? Yes? I smelled paint, fresh paint. Yeah, there'll probably be some people that come fashionably late. That's usually what happens. So come forward so people have a place. The topic, I was asked to pick anything, so I picked one. The topic is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, just 2 verses from chapter 13. So for those of you that are liking Bhagavad Gita and maybe a little bit on the newer side, the structure of Bhagavad Gita goes like this. 6, 6, and 6 makes 18. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, there's different ways of describing, but one of the ways of the first 6 chapters, it's a high level picture of the stages of yoga, the yoga ladder. And right at the beginning, after what you see here, Arjuna in the battle scene is described, chapter 1, then comes Sankhya Yoga. And we know Sankhya Yoga because Krishna says in chapter 2, verse 39, thus far I have described Sankhya, now I'm going to describe Buddhi. So Sankhya Yoga means matter and spirit and the categories of matter and spirit. And we belong to the categories of spirit, not the categories of body or matter. So we're not the body. First half of chapter 2. And then Buddhi is how you live your life with that understanding. This microphone stand has the tendency to drop. It's okay, I just fixed it. So Buddhi, Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi means intelligence. How do you direct your senses and mind with your intelligence to reach the goal of yoga, connecting with the Supreme? And then following that, chapter 3, which is Karma Yoga, acting without attachment. That's an obstacle. Attachment to the results. When you're working, there's a tendency to be attached, or the sense of being the proprietor of that which you do. It follows. If you're the body, if you don't understand you're not the body, you can't go to the next 2 and 3. But if you understand you're not this body, then there's this problem that arises. With the body, there's work, and with work, there's fruits, and being attached to the fruits. So that's Karma Yoga, 1, 2, 3. And then Gyan Yoga, now yoga of knowledge. And then Bhakti Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, chapter 6. And then finally, the end of chapter 6, Krishna declares the best of all systems of yoga is Bhakti. Isn't that simple? Just the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And then the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita is a how-to section. Krishna says, I'm now going to explain to you how you can do Bhakti Yoga. You can live your life based upon the principles that he described at the end of chapter 6. So It's a robust section of the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti, bhakti, bhakti. From different angles. There's a little Sankhya section in the middle there, in chapter 7. It's okay. Continue. So after the middle 6 chapters comes chapter 13. The final 6 chapters starts with 13. And that's what we're going to be discussing. So chapter 13, Krishna goes back to the topic of Sankhya Yoga and elaborates further. So we'll do it again. Chapter 2, the first half, Sankhya. Matter, spirit, we belong to the category of spirit. We don't belong to the category of matter. And then he touches on it again, chapter 7, where Krishna describes the 8 material elements. 8 material elements, gross and subtle, earth, water, fire, air, ether. That's 5. 3, subtle, mind, intelligence, false ego. 3 plus 5 is how many? 8, very good. You can, now that you can play Mridanga, you can do math. So, 8 material elements, and aside from that, there's the spirit. So that's a little mini Sankhya section in chapter 7, the middle 6 section. And then in chapter 13, Krishna expands. He revisits Sankhya again. And he asks matter and spirit, matter and spirit, matter and spirit, 6 questions, divisions of 2. 3 times 2 is how many? 6, very good. So he asks Krishna, is declaring, he isn't asked a question, he's just furthering, no, Arjuna asked, field of activities and the knower of the field of activities, matter and spirit. Prakriti, material nature, and the knower of material nature. So, Purusha, the enjoyer of material nature, matter and spirit. And knowledge and the object of knowledge. That 3 pairs of 2. That's 6 questions. So the first of those 6 questions that Krishna chooses to speak about is what we're going to speak about. Chapter 13, verses 8 through 12. Chapter 13, verses 8 through 12 are in the category of knowledge. But if you study the items of knowledge, look carefully, and the items of knowledge are qualities, such as humility and pridelessness. Those are nice qualities. That's the first 2. Humility and pridelessness. Then he goes through describing the object of knowledge, that's him, or the super soul, the supreme, the object of knowledge. The purpose of the qualities, the purpose of knowledge is to know Krishna. He declares that elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15. But the foundation is chapter 13. And then Prabhupada has called this chapter 13 nature. I'm going to circle back to how we get to today's little 2 verses. The title, the English translation that he has given, chapter 13, is Nature, Enjoyer, and Consciousness. So nature, we know, that's that's category of matter. And then the enjoyer is in the category of spirit. Prakriti and Purusha. Enjoyer of Prakriti, Purusha. And then consciousness. So making some distinction between enjoyer and consciousness, although they're in the same category, there's different features of those 2. Here's the Sanskrit. because this nature, enjoyer, and consciousness is Prabhupada's English translation of the Sanskrit title of that chapter 13. Kshetra, field. Kshetragya, the knower of the field, that matter and spirit. Vibhaga yoga, the divisions of matter and spirit. Sankhya. And Bhaktisiddhanta, in his English translation of Bhagavad Gita, predominated and predominator, matter and spirit. But Prabhupada added nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So who's the enjoyer? Who's that guy? Is the living entity the enjoyer, or is the Supreme the enjoyer? Which is the right one? Well, if you're a living entity, you're subject to duality, because matter has duality. There's night and day. There's winter and summer season. There's hot and cold. Just stay in Texas for a while. You find out it's hot and it's cold. And anywhere. And, happy, sad, pleasure, pain, honor, dishonor. Duality. That's the nature of this place. But supposing you're not identifying with matter. Supposing you're spirit and you don't identify with matter. That's the platform of enjoyment. Supposing you identify with matter, that's the platform of duality. Happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, pleasure and pain. So moving further in chapter 13, these are the two verses. That was just warm up. Karya karna karchadve hetu prakritir uchate. Purushak sukha dukhanam bhoktritve hetu uchate. It's taking these same principles, matter and spirit, and then expanding on them. The word karya is that which is caused, and karana is the cause. So the cause and the effect. That which is caused is the karya. Karya karna karchatve hetu prakritir uchate. Uchate means it is said that prakriti is the cause of these cause and effect. This is, go back to the beginning part of chapter 13. Arjuna wants to know, what's knowledge and the object of knowledge? So knowledge, he's giving the answer to that question. He's continuing. Knowledge is to know that matter, prakriti, is both the cause and the effect of material existence. And then purusha, that's spirit, sukha dukhanam, sukha, happiness, dukkha, the opposite, distress. Bhoktritve, when the living entity attempts, when the jiva attempts to be the bhokta, the enjoyer of prakriti, happiness and distress, good fortune, ill fortune. Prabhupada has chosen to translate as sufferings and enjoyments. So back to the Sanskrit, looking at the Sanskrit, breaking it down. Nature, prakriti, is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. Nature, it's the laws of nature. Like gravity, it's a law of nature. So there's a cause, there's an effect, and it's a material. It's a material cause and effect. Or anything. Breathing, eating. There's a cause and something on the physical plane, there's a cause and the effect. Material nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. In contrast, the living entity, that's this Purusha. Remember the question at the beginning? What Prakriti and Purusha? Matter and spirit? So spirit, Purusha, the enjoyer, the living entity, is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments. That sufferings and enjoyments is not absolute. There is such a thing as enjoyment that's absolute. This is not speaking of the absolute position of the living entity. It's in the material prakriti, identifying with material prakriti, falsely identifying through our dear friend false ego, identifying with I'm this body. They didn't get lesson number 1. So what happens if you're doing a math calculation and you make a mistake the first thing? Everything else after that is going to be off. So you got to get the first calculation right, and then the next one, then the next one, then you can get the right answer. Supposing somebody doesn't get their first calculation right, they think that Purusha is Prakriti. Then that's what this verse is speaking about. Purusha is the cause of sufferings and enjoyments. But the sufferings and enjoyments is in the field of duality. It's not in the realm of absolutes. There is enjoyment in the realm of absolutes. There's love and separation, which appears to be a suffering, but it's an ecstasy. So it's a different set of definitions, a different set of reality, it's different. Remember the translation, nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So one who's thinking themselves to be the enjoyer of nature, they're suffering. And enjoyment, but even the enjoyment is not what real enjoyment is. I'll say it again. The enjoyment of material happiness is not, it's ashashvatam, it's temporary, and it's in itself is misery. It's misery because it induces forgetfulness of who we really are. And if you forget who you really are, back to the first mathematical calculation. If you don't understand you're not the body, you're in this realm of duality, and that enjoyment and the suffering are both wrong calculations. It's not what real enjoyment is. It's not what real suffering is. The real suffering is forgetfulness of who we are, and forgetfulness of our relationship of loving exchange with Krishna, forgetfulness of both of those things. That's suffering. And it's all suffering. The happiness is suffering. The temporary buzz, senses and sense objects. And then something else happens. The happiness is not lasting, and it's not what real happiness is. It obstructs, it blocks, it obfuscates the real sense of what real happiness is. Look at this. This is the very next verse. Similar Sanskrit terminology. Krishna is going further with what he explained in verse number 21. Here's 22. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam. There's this word karana again, it's a cause. Guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. So Purusha prakriti stohi. The Purusha, the living entity, that's us, situated in prakriti, prakriti stha, situated in material nature, living entity in material nature, he means certainly, bhunkte, tries to be the enjoyer, bhunkte, or enjoyer of what? Modes of nature, prakriti jan gunan, the modes of nature. So there's this little rhyme, nursery rhyme for kids. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot 3 days old. If you're from America, you know that one. Mode of passion, mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness, mode of ignorance. Some like it in the pot 3 days old. That's mode of ignorance. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot 3 days old. Modes of nature. I want to be the Prakriti Jan Gunan. I want to be the enjoyer, Bhukte. I want to be the enjoyer of material nature. But one man's food is another man's poison. Another slogan. So what's good for me might be bad for the next guy, and vice versa. And what I think is tasty may be bad for me. That's another one. So that happens when one is involved in material nature, Prakriti, thinking of oneself as the enjoyer, Bhukte. Bhukte. Just like it's the same Sanskrit root, food that's been offered to Krishna, prasadam. Food that's not been offered to Krishna, bhoga. Same Sanskrit root, bhoga and bhukte. Same Sanskrit root. Enjoyment separate from Krishna, that's bhoga, or the enjoyer of Prakriti in the modes. The living entity thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes. So it connects to the previous verse. It's just embellishing or adding. And why does this happen? That's the second. Karanam is the cause. Guna Sangha. Guna Sangha. Guna means modes of nature. Sangha, association. Association with the modes of nature. By associating with modes of nature, sad asad yoni janmasu. Sad asad. Now, sad and asad can have different meanings. Sat means eternal. Asat means not eternal or temporary. That's one of the sat asat, sat and asat. But here, Prabhupada has chosen to translate good and evil. Good and evil. Sat is good. Asat is evil. You get punched in the nose. I want to enjoy. Boom. That's asat. Evil. But in various species. So implied, it's not explicit, but it's implicit. Is there this program of trying to be the enjoyer of the modes of the material nature drives living entity into the cycle of birth and death? How many times? Unlimited numbers of times. Because the soul is eternal, matter is temporary, and the configurations of matter are always changing. And as long as I, the soul, think I want to enjoy, just the first line, Purusha Prakritisto hi bhukte prakriti janga. As long as I want to be the bhukte, the enjoyer of Prakriti, according to the modes of nature, it's a sucker punch. You just keep going on and on and on and on and on. Birth after birth after birth after birth, endlessly. Endlessly. There's no end to it. Is there no end to it? There's possible to have an end to it. And the possibility is, here's the good news. The possibility is you meet a devotee, you meet someone who's carrying bhakti, and they give you some bhakti. And you go, oh, thank you. You just causelessly hear some bhakti. Oh, thank you. In other words, you say yes. You can say no. Or you can say maybe. But if you say yes, then your good fortune has begun. Because that's the means of dissolving the cycle of birth and death. The affinity for being the enjoyer of matter. Now we're going back because these two verses are describing affinity for the enjoyment of matter. Both of these verses. And the last part, thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. So here's an artist's depiction. There's these two fellows downstairs on a theater stage, and they're dueling over the fair maiden. And whoever wins gets the fair maiden, whoever loses dies. So They think I'm the enjoyer. Well, at least I'm trying to be the enjoyer of the fair maiden, the object of the senses. But both fellows, they're being influenced by the good and the evil. I mean, that's what the artist is attempting to show. The good is there on the sun, and the evil is the moon with a big sneer. Look at that guy. So good and evil, they're in competition. Affinity for being the enjoyer. Good and evil. That's just an artist's depiction of what Krishna just said in verse 22. And it goes on. Good and evil. There's lots and lots and lots of dramas about the struggle between good and evil. And it's not in between one person and another person. It can be within oneself. Good and evil, and tempted and, distracted by the idea of becoming the enjoyer of material nature. So here's another nice diagram. I like graphics, as you can see. So here's those same three ladies upstairs, and one is dressed in yellow, that is to indicate the mode of goodness. Red is indicating the mode of passion, and the dark colored cloth, that's the mode of ignorance. And the three modes of material nature are acting on players downstairs. So one of those two guys, he thinks, I am being controlled by my employer. I'm the worker. And the other guy is thinking, I'm the employer. I'm engaging the worker to do my business. And I'll reciprocate. He gets some reward for the fruits of his work. But I'm the giver of the reward, or the fruits of his work. And both are in illusion. Neither are the enjoyer. The one fellow may be thinking, I'm the enjoyer, and the other is the sufferer. But both are sufferers because they're both controlled by the three modes of material nature and forgetting who they are and what's going on here anyways. So it's helpful. It's more than helpful. It's necessary to pause and be introspective. And when you're being introspective, to be guided by wisdom literature, or be guided by spiritual intelligence, be guided by Krishna's perfect words, or the spiritual master repeating Krishna's perfect words, same thing. And that's the procedure for, at least by knowledge, counteracting ignorance. I'll do it again. Ignorance means lack of knowledge, and knowledge is a lack of, it covers, which is stronger, light or darkness? Light. Because you turn light on and darkness is dispelled, so light is stronger. So give knowledge and live with knowledge, and ignorance can't attack. The mode of ignorance can't attack when one is situated in knowledge. So here's the three presiding personalities of those three modes. Very nice drawing. Vishnu is in the middle, carrying the symbols of Vishnu. And over on our left, that's Lord Brahma performing yajna and studying of the Vedas, etc. And over on the right, that's Lord Shiva. And they're the presiding deities overseeing each of those three modes of nature. And therefore, those who want to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature, they not only abide by the codes given by Vishnu, or live in goodness, but they dedicate those activities in goodness to the Supreme. Here's an example. Be vegetarian, but don't just be, that's a mode of goodness. Don't take the life of creatures unnecessarily. Live in the mode of goodness. And then there's those that take only Krishna Prasadam. And then that's transcendental, for example. So non-violence elevated to the transcendental position. And you can give, any other example. So Vishnu Bhakti means A and B, not just A. A is live your life in the quality of goodness, and B plus A is, and dedicate that life to the satisfaction of Vishnu. Live your life, that's the bhakti principle. Live your life in ways that are pleasing to Vishnu or Krishna with the purpose that Krishna should be pleased. That's bhakti. That's the darkness, that's the mode of ignorance. And the absence of compassion is violence. So this is unnecessary violence, and unnecessary violence leads to karma. The painting or the drawing is meant to illustrate one who brings suffering to another, that same suffering comes back. There's so many Bhagavatam narrations that depict this, but it's right there in chapter 3 Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 3 Bhagavad Gita. Karma and then karma yoga. So here's another illustration. This is straight from Bhagavad Gita. It's going down, down, down. That's the mode of ignorance. And then going up from down, it's lust and, romance and all of those things. And then one may come to the position of neutral. That is, I'm engaged in fruitive activity, but then there's someone leading one from fruitive activity to study of the Vedas, sense control, taking shelter of spiritual teachings, and living one's life that way. So that leads up. Here's the verse from Bhagavad Gita. I'm almost done. Yay. For those of you that have been around a while, those of you that are newer, just hear and I'll try to explain. Up, middle, down. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvasta. Those who in sattva, those who live in goodness, they go up. Urdhvam. Just like our tilak is upward. There's other tilak that's horizontal. Our tilak is urdhvam. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvasta. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness, they go up. Then those that are in the mode of passion, madhya means like middle. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. They stay in the middle planetary region of the universe. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. Raja is passion. Raja, like a king, Raja. Passion. And adho gacchanti tamasa. One goes down if the mode of ignorance. That's what this illustration is depicting. And there's some details. So we want to be in goodness and dedicate those activities of goodness to Krishna, so we avoid things like lust and greed, because they're dark, or they entangle one in forgetfulness. Whoops, going the wrong direction. Here's another example. It's easy to see what's there. The upper idea, that's the mode of goodness, that's transcendental life. Just below the transcendental life is giving in charity and engaging people in charitable acts. What's on the right is it leads to heavenly realm. Indulging, the middle one, indulging in eating anything, drinking anything, it leads to an animal form. Like a hog that eats anything. And passion and ignorance at the very bottom. So there are life forms that are more suited for each of those modes, but at the very top, the advocacy of Bhagavad Gita is transcendence, Live your life in goodness and dedicate those activities of goodness to the satisfaction of the Supreme. Almost done. This is the same understanding, almost very, very similar Sanskrit, found in the third canto Bhagavatam. The painting on the right, that's Lord Kapila. What is Lord Kapila known for? Teaching Sankhya. Just as we've been discussing. What's Sankhya? Categories of matter, categories of spirit. Different categories of matter, and we belong to the category of spirit. And there are different ways of misidentifying who we are, abundant. And then there's a very simple way to understand who you are. That's Sankhya, that's the philosophy, and then you live your life that way, that's bhakti. So here's the Sanskrit from verse 8 from chapter 26. Karya karana kartradve karanam prakritir vidhum. Sound familiar? Different, but very, very similar. Bhoktradve sukha dukhanam purusham prakrite param. Very similar Sanskrit. So Kapila is on the right. He's teaching his mother, Devahuti. Here's the BBT translation. The cause, that's karana, of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is material nature, material cause. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress, that's the duality that we're very familiar with. Feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. We are the architects of our good fortune, ill fortune. You've heard that one before. Good fortune, ill fortune. We're the architect. We design it. Now, we design within laws of nature. We can't just design something that doesn't conform with the laws of nature. That's a problem, because it doesn't. It's illusion. But within the laws of nature, we bring about our own good fortune, ill fortune, our own happiness and distress, based upon how we, the soul, the non-physical but spiritual entity, interacts with physical in the mood of trying to be the enjoyer of it. So we bring about happiness and distress. Temporary happiness, temporary distress, but it can go on indefinitely. It's an important understanding. Question: is there a guarantee that living entities may one day finish their material sojourn? Answer: no. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, endlessly, I cast them forever and ever into different species of life. The cycle of birth and death, even at the time of cosmic annihilation, it's just suspended. And when the next creation comes, it gets activated again. And one picks up where they left off from the previous creation. Endlessly. So for something that's endless, what to do? Answer: bhakti. By good fortune, one may get the opportunity to be in association with those that have bhakti. And those persons that have bhakti like to give bhakti. And then someone can say yes or no or maybe. Let me think about it. And at some point, instantly or later, delayed, it can be delayed, they say yes. Or let me try it out, or something like that. Then that determination of the cycle of birth and death has begun. Don't guarantee that you'll continue, but if you continue, the outcome is transcendence. So we're done. No, we're almost done. Here's another place. Look how similar the Sanskrit is. Karya karna kartratma atma atma kartratma utendriya mano mayam vaikarikas taijasascha tamasash chaitya tridha. The Mahatattva, this is a new term. Some of you are familiar with, some of you are not. What does Mahatattva mean? What is it? It's the totality of the material energy in its differentiated state. Differentiated state means there's in the cycle of time, there's material, the totality of the material energy. It's not differentiated. It's got another name called Pradhan. No distinction, just a cloud floating in the sky. But within that cloud floating in the sky, there's a procedure that Vishnu engages in where he animates and activates Pradhan and it starts to differentiate into the different parts, 24 elements. Notice, Chapter 7 Bhagavad Gita, for those of you that are with us earlier, Chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, we heard Krishna describes 8. 5 gross, 3 subtle, makes 8. Kapila Dev, in the more expanded version, 8 becomes 24. It's just subdivisions of another lens to look through to see the same thing. The number expands because there's subdivisions of the 8. 24. And then that's called Mahatattva, the differentiated material energy. Here's how Prabhupada has translated it. The Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego. That's the first of the 24. Our dear friend, false ego. Which is manifested in 3 phases: cause, effect, and doer. Now, if you're not a scientist, this is puzzling. But a spiritual scientist likes to understand. This is how it, if you want to know how the whole thing begins and unfolds, read this section of the Bhagavatam, because it describes it, slow motion. And how will you know that that's how it happens? You won't know because you weren't around when it happened. You can't go back in time before you existed and examine it with your senses. But it comes from authority. That's how you can know. Okay. Cause, effect, and doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in 3 different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance, which is true. Some people have a false ego in the mode of goodness. Some people have a false ego in the mode of passion. Some people have a false ego in the mode of ignorance. But the false ego is just false ego, influenced by the modes, or prakriti. And the whole of yoga is to become cleansed of that influence of the modes of nature and to know who you really are. The bell rings. Self-realization. That's the goal. And to know who you are, one more thing. You can't know who you are without knowing that you're part of something much bigger than yourself. Like the Supreme. We're part of the Supreme. And that's part of knowing yourself. It's incomplete. Say it in the negative. It's incomplete if you know that I'm in the category of spirit, but I don't know I'm part of the Supreme Spirit. I'm a tiny fragmental part of the Supreme. Supposing I don't know that. It's possible. It's called Brahman realization. I know that I am part of this spirit that's not matter, but I don't know that the Supreme Spirit who I have an eternal loving relationship with. Just like last night. Was that, somebody here will know. Was the girl that asked the question? No. The girl that asked the question about what's the relationship between divine love and the whole of the yoga system. Remember that question? She's not here. Was she the yoga teacher? That was the yoga teacher, the one that did the sitting yoga. Yeah. She's here? That was your question? Okay, I wasn't saying it was yours. Okay, somebody asked that question. The answer is, go back to this, the first 3 minutes that I was speaking. The yoga system is a ladder that leads to the topmost rung of the ladder. All the rungs of the ladder are meant to take you to the next rung, next rung, next rung. Keep going, keep going, keep going. When you're in the top rung, that's bhakti, it's divine love. The lower rungs of the yoga ladder are meant to take you to that top rung. Divine love, or bhakti, love of the Supreme. Love of the Supreme. That's where you get on that train, that's where it's going. You may not know it, and the teacher may not even know it. But Krishna knows it, and those who know the whole yoga system, they know it. So it's fine. Do something that's not already there, but be aware it's meant to take you there. So all of this nice painting on the right side, that's Maitreya in the Himalayas. He's got a nice little ashram underneath a overhang in the side of a mountain. And he's being visited by Vidura. Vidura is a great personality, etc., etc. So they're having this nice discussion on transcendence. And Maitreya knows transcendence, and he's helping Vidura understand it. So same, he's helping us understand it. And this is our last slide. This is the verse for today's discussion, nature, and joy and consciousness. The living entity, we saw this before, the living entity, that's Purusha, in material nature, Prakriti Stha, thus follows the ways of life, enjoying Bhunkte, the three modes of material nature, Bhunkte Prakriti, Jan Gunan. This is due to his association with that material nature, Guna Sangha. Thus he meets with good and evil, Sadasat Yoni Janmasu. Is it possible to not meet with good and evil? Yes. How do you do that, Bhakti? Supposing I want something else besides Bhakti. Is there some other way? Well, there's an indirect way, but it leads to the direct way. This is going to end with this. Prabhupada said, supposing you ask somebody, my dear sir, can you please touch your nose? And another fellow says, no. There's an indirect way. And if you have a long arm and you turn your head, maybe you can touch your nose. But the end is touch your nose. The end is divine love, or transcendental loving service to the Supreme. That's the target. That's the goal. And all the activities, all of this teaching, Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and the whole thing is to bring us to that place. What's that place? Love for Krishna. Because through love for Krishna, then you can know Krishna. You can't know a person without loving that person. You can have an idea, probably a wrong one, of what the person is. And there's the opportunity for intimate association with the person, the divine, the transcendental person, through love, loving service. Okay. So that's it. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 22, and a little expanding of that topic. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. Comments or questions? Can I get a reminder? What time am I supposed to leave so that I can be at the next place at the right time? 11:30. So we have 14 minutes. Because I'm going to have to salute and say, I'm leaving in 14 minutes.
Guru Maharaj, earlier when you were talking, you gave an example of you compared knowledge with light.
Yeah. And darkness is ignorance, yeah.
So, when there is darkness and we turn on light, everybody feels good, everybody can see. But when there is suffering, and when you open Bhagavad Gita and say and read something or say something from Bhagavad Gita, there's not such a feeling immediately. Is that because of the subtle and gross?
Well, there's different reasons, but that's one of those reasons. I'm attached. And you tell me to be unattached, I'm attached. I'm not attached to suffering. I'm attached to the cause of the suffering. And you're telling me to be detached. I'm sorry. I don't like the suffering, but I'm attached. And I'm going to slap you if you keep pushing it. Don't push it. I'm attached. I may not say that, but that's the reason. I don't like the suffering, but I'm attached to the cause of suffering. That's exactly what these karya, karna, kartra is exactly what these verses. Karana is the cause. Bhungte, prakriti jan gunan, trying to be the enjoyer of the modes of nature. That's the cause. I'm attached. I want to be the enjoyer. And I don't know another way of enjoying besides that one. So, thank you, but no thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Maharaj. The other question I have, everything in this material world is in duality, means I'm talking about material happiness and material misery. So I'm looking for material happiness, but ultimately I get misery, okay?
By design, that's the nature of the place. By design, that's the nature of the place. It looks like, and you get kicked.
Yes. So then let's flip it, and let's say I'm not looking for happiness. I'm looking for, how to say it. For the lack of terminology, I'm going to say, I'm looking for happiness, but I get misery. But if I look for misery, do I get happiness, material happiness?
You get duality. You get the mix. Supposing somebody's an addict. They want happiness. Their addiction is their Happiness. It's dark, suffering. Or, say something a little milder, just smoking cigarettes. It's ignorance. It's miserable. to get somebody to get used to smoking a cigarette, but once it's cough and it's polluting your lungs and it's nasty. But then you become addicted. You can't do without it. It's habit forming. The modes of nature are habit forming, passion and goodness. You live your life in goodness, and it feels good. Being forgiving, being charitable, being clean, feels good. For the person who is in the mode of ignorance, give them something clean, they'll make it dirty. That's happiness. It can happen quickly or it can happen gradually, but it's habit. The modes of material nature bring habits. And then there's beyond habit, beyond conditioning, beyond the modes of nature. That's the message of Bhagavad Gita. Happiness that doesn't have a mix. Pure happiness, pure connection, untainted by anything. That's the then you say the positive. Unflinching devotion. Mai chananya yogena bhakti abhyabhicharini. That's from the same chapter 13 verse, the phrase. Undivided devotion to the Supreme. The characteristic of knowledge. And then there's the object of knowledge, the Supreme. You got the microphone, go for it.
Yeah.
No one else has got waving their hand.
Let me. When I ask this question, I understand what you said. I want to. I'm trying to stay within the confines of material happiness and material misery right now. And my point is, let's say I like BMW. Okay, I'm going to go for BMW. I'm going to pay $100,000.
50,000.
Yeah. Well. So then I have to. Now I spend so much money. Now I'm attached to that, and I have to clean it. I have to make maintenance and this and that. So this is, and somebody may steal it or whatever or damage it. So then I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna. I don't want BMW. I'm gonna walk from point A to point B. It may take longer, but I'm gonna walk. So
okay.
At least there is some realization that
it's not real happiness.
It's not real happiness.
Okay, congratulations.
So that means little bit of discomfort from getting from point A to point B actually gives me some peace of mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. I want. That's a desire. There's this and that. You just replace this with that or that with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But its desire is still there. So is there a situation where there desire lessness? The answer is transcendental desire in relation to Krishna is desire, but it's transcendental desire, and thus desire lessness on the material plane, and thus transcendental happiness, because it's desire less, meaning without material desire. Because material means in darkness or in ignorance. Supposing I have knowledge, can I have desire? Oh, yes. That was one of the questions in the discussion at the university yesterday. Right? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
At the end of the class, I'm not sure if I misheard your statement. You said it is not possible to know somebody without loving them.
It's not possible to do what?
It is not possible to know somebody without loving him. You were talking about Krishna.
You're speaking fast and the microphone is too close. And did you hear what he said?
It is not possible to know somebody without knowing Krishna.
Oh, it's incomplete. And thus not.
Yeah, my question is, how does one love somebody without knowing him?
Okay, then it's not love. It's dysfunctional. I love you. I don't know you, but I love you. Or I have an idea, you're a spirit soul. But the spirit soul is part of something we're all souls are part of something bigger. Supposing I don't know that, it's incomplete.
Another question, Maharaj. In your slideshow, there was a goodness, passion.
Hold that a little further from your mouth because you got a strong voice.
Sorry, Maharaj. In your slideshow, you showed goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Yes.
And the ignorant go down, which
Yes, that's
they
right.
go to hell. So before framing the question, I googled to see what is the percentage of meat eaters in the world, and it came to like 80%. So can we safely assume that between a mullah and a pope and a rabbi and the Dalai Lama, if one were to ask what is common between them gentlemen, other than that they are God-fearing, they're all meat eaters. So can we safely assume that if one eats meat, then they are hellbound?
No. I mean, when you're saying hell, what does that mean? Supposing one becomes a hog. That's different than the hellish planets. It's an animal. So one could say that's hellish, and one could say, no, it's not hell. Hell is much worse than being a hog. So, it depends on the definition of things. But, you can't trust Google Guru. Yeah, 80%. You can't trust it. It's something. Gives a direction, but not definitive. Okay. I'm looking at my watch, and my watch says we have to end. But that's not a problem, because there's something else waiting right after. And there's been a lot of effort to prepare Prasadam for all of you. And thank you all that came from Houston. I heard you got rained out. Your picnic got rained out. But thank you for coming. And, housewarming. So our host and hostess bought a new house. And those of you that came in, as you were coming in, you probably detected the fresh paint smell. I certainly did when I first walked in. And, thank you for participating in the housewarming. And probably, if you appeal to Rati, he'll have another nice kirtan. He didn't leave, did he? Okay. So is he going to be back later or no?
He's here.
Oh, he's here. Okay.
Online.
Okay. So if you twist his arm a little bit, he can open his eyes and see the keyboard again. Because his kirtan is fantastic. And this young girl, her mridanga playing is similarly fantastic.